We're inside the budget lockup and we've just come from a press conference where Treasurer Jim Chalmers has talked about the restraint in this budget. And that's a key word in this document because a lot of it is about what it does not do. Right now, it warns of rising energy prices for households, and yet the budget does not deliver any one-off cash payment to help with household assistance to deal with this challenge. Inflation is on the rise and household costs are on the rise. But the warning from the Treasurer is that they cannot inject cash into the economy to help with this problem because that would only fuel inflation. That's why in this budget we're going to hear a lot in the next few days about the warning against fueling inflation in any way. At the same time, the budget has a very grim outlook for the global economy and the consequences for Australia. It downgrades growth inside Australia because of what's happening globally with energy prices and the inflation consequences and the tightening that we're seeing by central banks. There's also a very tough scenario in the budget that highlights the risks of recession in other countries and the knock-on consequences for Australia if those global central banks get it wrong. In that scenario, we're looking at unemployment rising to 5% in Australia. That's not something that we were thinking of in the budget earlier this year. Now, the outlook is tough, but it's not all bad news. There's a big housing idea in this budget, 1 million homes to be built between 2024 and 2029. That's under a deal that's been struck with the states and the territories and also with super funds. So that's promising. There's also money for childcare, money for paid parental leave. So there is a pitch to households in this budget. At the same time, there's also pretty good evidence of significant savings across the board in the federal government. Now that adds up to about $22 billion in money that's helping the bottom line over the next 4 years. And I think it's really important that there's a signal from Jim Chalmers and from Katie Gallagher, the Finance Minister, that they're going to add to that. It's very much what they term the start of a conversation about taking the scalpel to federal spending over the next couple of years. The fact is that there is some improvements in revenue that add to the budget bottom line this year, but that dissipates over the next couple of years. So we actually see higher deficits than previously forecast 2 or 3 years from now. It's a pretty clear message that there's going to have to be more work to either raise tax revenue or cut spending or do both in order to repair the budget bottom line. And there's a very strong message in the budget speech about fairness in the budget. And that's a pretty clear signal, I think, that those stage 3 tax cuts worth $254 billion over a decade are still in Labor's sights. It's just a question of when they might get to addressing that problem, perhaps after the next election.